Great session. There were a lot of folks who had questions about performance, who had questions about how to handle Amazon. And a lot of the same questions come up over and over again. And I feel like the biggest question that comes up over and over again is just, how do we talk to Amazon? And that always comes up. And my response, good morning, Lee. My response is always to remember that they're people. Remember that there's people on the other side. I used to be one of those people that would get the emails, that would get the inquiries, or that would read the correspondence back and forth. And it can be really disheartening to have someone write to you and be like, "Wow, you suck," and you're like, "Thanks, that's awesome." And then if you're the poor person who's got to do this all day, and all these emails coming in, and so many negative comments and negative situations, and trying to not hate your job after the end of the day. I think that was the most important thing that I could tell them, is just always remember that you're talking to people. There's so many people in this space who somehow think that they're talking to bots because they get the same email message back. It doesn't mean you're talking to a bot. It just means that the person who's responding is only allowed to use certain preset blurbs to respond to you. But that doesn't mean that they're a bot. That doesn't mean that they aren't a sentient human being with feelings. Okay, so we have a few questions this morning that I wanted to go over. And let me make sure I've got this in front of me so that I can get these questions answered. And then always keep in mind that if you have questions that I have not covered, that I want you to ask them in the chat. Okay, that's why we're here, is to answer your questions. Okay, all right. So the first question that came in this week was, with the closing of several big box stores, do you have an opinion on the impact to holiday buying season online? I am probably one of the worst people to ask this, because I am one of those crazy Amazon shoppers. I am definitely one of those people who, I use Prime more often than I go shopping in a store. I was actually talking to my taxi driver yesterday about how much I use Prime Now instead of go to an actual store, like for my groceries. Now it depends on the what I'm going for, right? You're obviously going to be able to do some better shopping in the store if you have a weekend where that they're doing a special or something like that. And sometimes bananas are the worst to buy on Prime Now. Seriously, they used to have a really awesome way of packaging bananas where it would be in its own banana container thingy, and it was really great, and they always arrived completely safe, no bruised, whatever. Now they just put it in a bag with everything else, and so the bottom bananas are always smashed. They're never any good for anything but bread. So I just don't buy bananas on Prime Now, which is kind of sad because I love bananas. So there's that. But for the most part, there is absolutely nothing that I can't find or will not buy on Amazon, except for bananas. They got me with that one. And so when you're thinking about big box stores like Toys R Us, I went into Toys R Us once in the past 8 years, something like that. I think it was once for a birthday, and I was late for the birthday party and knew that I wouldn't be able to get anything anywhere else, and so I stopped at Toys R Us along the way on my way to the bouncy house. It was a bouncy house birthday party, and so I stopped at Toys R Us on the way. That was the only time I've ever gone to Toys R Us. Most of the time, if I'm in a hurry and I'm trying to get a gift, I'll go to a big box store like Target. I won't go to a specialty store, and right now Target is doing very well, Walmart's doing very well, Amazon's doing very well. So the more niche stores aren't doing quite as well. So honestly, I don't really see that there will be a huge impact, except that people who are already buying on Amazon will continue to do so. And then people who would have bought at Toys R Us maybe will shop at a different big box store. What I could tell, they're trying to bring it back in some way. So who knows what's going to happen after this? Maybe this is the only year where that won't be a thing. But as far as the impact of holiday buying season, I mean, people who maybe weren't going to go online are now. But most of the time, Prime is pretty saturated in the US market, and especially for people my age and younger, people in their 30s and below, buying online is just the norm. I remember buying books for friends online back, in college, And, it would take 2 weeks to show up. But we started doing this, when we had money, the internet was a thing. So this is normal for us, right? Whereas people who were around before, Toys R Us's demographic definitely skewed older. People who wanted to go into the store and look at it and take, view it, like grandparents maybe, because I would never go into the store like that with my kids, ever. Like, you want to have the most miserable experience of your life? Go into a Toys R Us with young children. Don't do it ever. It would be absolutely horrible. So their target demo were older people anyway. And anytime you have that happening, then you really need to examine your business practices, because eventually, that means that you're not changing. Okay. So second question is, what is your opinion on the pros and cons of selling on Amazon versus other e-commerce platforms? Are there better marketplaces for selling certain products versus others? In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, there are not other e-commerce platforms, realistically. There is Amazon, there is eBay, which is 6% of the overall market compared to Amazon's 50%. And then there are other online channels. Now, what I think that you guys should think of it as is more like, what type of business am I getting from Facebook? What type of business am I getting from Google? What type of business am I getting from Amazon? Not what other e-commerce channels are there. There's so many people who use other e-commerce channels and do multi-channel solutions and get maybe 10 to 15% of their sales off of Amazon. It's a lot of effort and it's a lot of work just to get 10 to 15% of your sales. For some people, the risk of suspension, and because they resell stuff, it's absolutely worth it to them. And they don't want to be in a situation where if Amazon were to turn them off, they would have no income. Great. Make sure that you have that going then. But if you are a brand owner, the best way to invest in your business is to have Google, Facebook, and Amazon strategies for online. Don't think about, going on to Walmart.com. You can if you want to, but it's not a priority. What you should be thinking about is how to get traffic from Facebook and Google to your website, and then how to sell on Amazon. That should be your focus if you are selling your own brand, not trying to get into other e-commerce platforms. If you're selling other people's brands, then definitely Walmart, Newegg, eBay, definitely get on those. But for someone who's selling their own stuff, focus on really dialing in on Facebook and Google traffic and Amazon. Okay. All right. Question number 3. What did Christina say? 14 million customers visit Amazon.com every single day. Yeah, that's a lot. And it's the 500-pound gorilla in the room. I've had problems with competitors misusing the color variation to sell different products into the same listing. Yeah, this happens. They had over 2,000 reviews for one product and then launched a different product that competes with ours on the same listing, benefiting from the high review count for a completely different product. I believe it has caused our sales to slow down and want to report it to Amazon. What is the most effective way to report this to Amazon? 2 ways you can report things to Amazon. The first way is through report a violation under the help section, and that is handled typically by seller support using information that Seller Performance has set up for them. Sometimes they get escalated to seller performance, from seller support if it's something that they can't handle, which is why I don't really like using it if I really want to report something. So what I suggest, if it's really important and you know that you've got all your ducks in a row and you're sending in a fairly short report, is I would actually send it directly as an email to seller performance at amazon.com, and outline the exact thing that's happening. So show a screenshot where it's clearly a different product, include the links to the ASINs, make sure they have a link that they can copy paste, not just a screenshot that they have to retype. Don't make them do work. Then explain how the product is different from the original product, and then say, and this appears to be a violation of this policy. People who you send it to in Seller Performance should know the policies, but you might get someone who's brand new who's just been there for 2 weeks. You never know who you're going to get if you go to a queue. So just literally, it's just like tick, 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 and then email it to seller-performance at amazon.com. And then they'll usually send you an email back that says, thank you for your inquiry. We will investigate. Have a nice day. And that's all you'll get. You'll never hear anything else. But you may see that it's been broken apart, or the page disappears for a couple days. That happens. But that would be my recommendation. The most effective way to report this is to go to seller-performance. Just make sure that you are being really super detailed and clear, because you don't want to send them an unclear message that doesn't help them solve the problem, right? Include the ASIN, include the screenshot, make sure it's clear so that they can follow it without having to click anywhere else, right? Like, think about the person who's trying to review this and how quickly they have to solve the problem and get on to their next job. If you want them to actually take action against another seller, you want them to not have to research anything or look at it. You want to put everything in front of them, okay? All right, question number 4. How do I know or find what toy brands I can sell? Okay, there's no good way to do this. I know that Best from the Nest was keeping a list for a while, just based on people who would send in information. And like literally people would go to the store and then send an update to Robin's team saying, I can't do this one, I can't do that one. So I don't know how accurate that list is, or if certain sellers can do certain things and certain sellers can't. The only surefire way to know if you can or can't sell a particular toy brand is to try to list it. So if you're at the store and you haven't sold a particular brand before, attempt to list it before you buy anything. Don't buy it and then try to list it. You don't know. They could have gotten branded or gated, brand gated, excuse me. And then now they have this whole transparency thing. So if you don't have a transparency sticker on the product, then it can't be received. It can't be sold. Okay. So if you're going to do arbitrage now, the best way to do arbitrage now is actually bundling. Trying to sell it exactly is going to be pretty difficult. Depends on the toy brand, of course. Some toy brands don't know how to use Amazon to their advantage. Okay, does Amazon have special instructions on how chocolates must be packaged for shipment? During this time of year, no, not really. They don't give you that instruction. But as with everything else that sells on Amazon, you need to make sure that a gorilla could step on the box and the product wouldn't get smashed. And today seems like a gorilla day, apparently. I'm bringing up gorillas multiple times. What a lot of folks don't understand is that the process is totally automated for choosing a box based on the weights and dims of the product. So if the product weight and dims are, say, 10 by 6 by 2, then it just gets automatically put into a box and out it goes. Like, it's not packaged with extra bubble wrap if it looks like it's fragile. You should be doing that. It's not packaged tightly to make sure that it doesn't bounce around. You should expect that it can get bounced around. And the employee at the fulfillment center doesn't have the authority to switch the box even if they wanted to. So even if the human looks at it and is like, wow, this is dumb, they can't change it. So make sure that you keep in mind that the product that you send to Amazon needs to be able to ship to the customer as is, perfectly safe. So that means for chocolate, if you have something in there that could easily be smashed or that can be broken in half or whatever, put it inside enough protection, protective layers to where it could make it regardless. So some like really nice chocolates where it needs to arrive in like perfect condition, like really expensive, nice truffles, bubble wrap it and then put it in a corrugate box, right? Something like that will be safe enough. It's not about instructions. What Amazon has said is that it needs to be able to ship to the customer safely, regardless. And so you need to make sure that your packaging does that, however it needs to happen. Okay. Tandy asked, anything more you could say about the transparency program? Right now, not really. It's fairly new. It's trying to replace brand gating. So they're basically trying everything and throwing it at the wall to try to solve this problem of brands having counterfeit items introduced into the sales stream. They're not that worried actually about arbitrage. They don't care that much. As long as customers are happy, they're happy. But there's a lot of counterfeit that's being introduced in as well. So they're trying to solve that in any way they can. And gating was the way for a while. And now they've thrown a new piece of spaghetti at the wall, which is the transparency program. Who knows what they're going to come up with next year? But if transparency catches on, well, then maybe that's what's going to be around next year. That's why they keep throwing spaghetti at the wall. You keep throwing it, see what happens. People like it. It resonates. Well, then now that's going to be the program. Yeah, it's still a little bit new. Christina included the URL there for you. Lee has a question. My question is about PPC ads. How do you evaluate ACoS? Other than your experience, how do you know if 30% ACoS is acceptable as an example? So you have to run your numbers to know if it's acceptable. And the numbers are really around prior to ads. What was your overall traffic and conversion ratio? And after ads, what was your traffic and conversion ratio? And what was your overall return on investment? The way that you do that is you pull your sales data from before ads, after ads, and then you pull your advertising information by ASIN. And when you pull by ASIN, you get the exact spend in a time period by ASIN, and then you divide that by the exact sales by ASIN, and then that's your true ACoS, and then you can see what the overall lift is. Just because it's 30% doesn't mean it's bad. It could be that 30% ACoS, because of the overall lift you get from the organic sales, between before ads and after ads, the overall lift is more than that, and so it's worthwhile. Or it could be that 30% ACoS is terrible, and you should walk away from that as fast as possible because it's actually costing you more money. But you need to actually pull your reports and then compare the ad spend against the overall sales. Okay. The expense of the transparency program will be passed on the seller. Of course. You have to pay for the labels. You have to pay for the printer, apparently. Someone mentioned that in the Facebook group. By the way, feel free to join our Facebook group. The link is there at the top there. Someone mentioned that in the Facebook group that they were in transparency and the printer was actually an unexpected expense. The actual printer labels, like the actual labels themselves, were only like 1 to 5 cents, I think, from an Amazon perspective. But there always seem to be hidden costs. But again, it's such a new program. They're just trying to see if something works. You don't know unless you try. And I know it's a lot of effort to try. And there's no like guarantees that next year, if you put in a lot of effort on this and buy the printer, then it'll still be a thing. Or that it really even works exactly as expected. Okay. Next question is, am I supposed to respond to negative reviews? We only have 5 reviews, so the last 1-star review we received really hurt. The customer didn't contact us, just talked about how bad the product was, and that she returned it for something else. Okay, there's a couple different things to address here. First, yes, respond to negative reviews. That's important. The way that you respond to negative reviews is not a customer service approach. Don't respond to the negative review as though you expect that person to get your response. Don't expect them to get the response. The way that comments to reviews come in is it comes in, at least for me, it comes in through my spam in Gmail. It comes in through like the one they call like promotions or something like that. And so unless I'm actively looking at that tab, I just don't see that the message came in. So don't expect that the customer will actually see your response. That means that the purpose of the response is primarily to address that concern for new customers who land on your page. Someone who's looking at the review, they see there's a comment, they want to look at it, they want to feel like, oh, okay, that's why that comment exists that way. Got it. That makes sense. Think of the negative review responses as someone shouting, wow, that really sucks. It's a piece of junk. And you're talking to someone else and trying to explain to them why that person shouting over there is wrong, right? Don't try to engage with the person shouting. Like you obviously need to try. They might listen to you, but don't expect them to. Think of it more like you're trying to solve the problem for the next person who comes along. Okay. The other thing that I would mention where they said the customer didn't contact us, always double check your returns reports. As soon as someone initiates a return, you should be sending a message saying, hey, it looks like you submitted a return. What could I have done better? What can I help you with? If they leave a message, it's even more critical that you respond. We actually consider the messages that come in through returns to be just as important as buyer-seller messages. Obviously, you're not rated on it. It's not part of your normal process. But if you're not responding to those, then you're just asking for negative reviews. Okay? If you don't know how to find the negative review, the return comments, it's under reports and then fulfillment, and then go to FBA customer returns. If you are selling through FBM, then you need to go to orders and then manage returns, and the comments will be there. Always respond to comments. Treat them as though they are buyer-seller messages. Okay? All right. Next question. My primary competitor, top in the category with the Amazon's Choice badge, is exchanging reviews for free products. Via Facebook, they are targeting customers who have already purchased and display to this group an ad saying, want a free product? Leave a review and message us with a screenshot along with your mailing address. We'll send your free product out right away. I reported to Amazon. It's been several months with no action being taken. How long does it take Amazon to investigate these things? Does Amazon have any obligation to follow their own policies? So first thing, yes, it's obviously violating policy. But if you reported it to Amazon in such a way that it wasn't obvious who was doing it, or that it was actually them, then it's going to be a problem, right? They can't validate that. There are situations in which someone has created Facebook groups or Facebook ads against their competitors. So they create these freebies, they put it on Facebook in the hopes of damaging their competitor for doing free giveaways. Now, I don't know if that's the case in this case, but Amazon has to have pretty solid proof that it's really them before they'll move forward. So you would need to do like a screenshot that the page admin is the same person who owns the account, for example. If you don't have something like that, then they're not going to follow up on it. You need some sort of proof that it's really that person, that it's really the competitor, not just a screenshot saying, see, look what they do, because that's not proof. Okay, so if you submitted a report that didn't have enough information, they're not going to do anything about it. That's one. Number two, if you reported a violation to seller support and it went to a newbie who didn't know what to do, they might not have done anything about it. So you may need to send it to seller-performance@amazon.com, but don't do that unless you have proof. And then the last thing, how long does it take Amazon to investigate these things? A couple days. As fast as anything else that they get sent in. They just didn't do anything about it for whatever reason, whether they weren't confident that what you sent was accurate, or whether they'd already seen this and already warned the seller on it for some other reason. You don't know what they already did. Obviously, they don't tell you. Or if this was a warning, they got a warning, and then now if something happens again, then they'll get suspended for it. It's unclear. But the number one thing I would say is make sure that your reports are detailed and have links and have proof that the person doing something is really that person, or that this review is really that a problem. Like include URLs, include actual clickable links, include pictures of things. Don't just assume that Amazon will do the investigation for you, because they don't have time. The employees do not have time for that. Okay. All right, last question that we had prior to starting today was, what are your thoughts, advice on using a sourcing agent? So we have someone that we hired directly, and she is amazing. Used to work at Toys R Us, worked at a bunch of other really big companies, and she is fantastic. By the way, if you want to work with her, then you can always sign up for a plan to work with her. She has a little bit of available time right now. Not always, sometimes she's pretty full. But we actually have a sourcing agent and we have merchandisers. I know a lot of people don't know what merchandisers are compared to sourcing agents. Sourcing agent is someone who finds you the factory and helps you negotiate the price and the terms and the timeline. The merchandiser is the one who actually follows through on the production, checks on how things are going, helps you arrange the inspection, make sure that things go out on time, like kind of more the logistical production aspect of it. So that's what we have. You can have a sourcing agent who helps with both. That's a little bit more rare. A lot of times people who are good at sourcing are not necessarily good at the rest of it, because when you work for a larger company, most people are siloed into their areas. They either just do sourcing, or they just do merchandising, or they just do compliance. They don't do across team functions. So a lot of times if you've got someone who's like, I'm an awesome sourcing agent, they may not know how to schedule an inspection for you, that sort of thing. So as far as using a sourcing agent, I am a big fan of sourcing agents. Because they know the environment where you don't. If you do know the environment, like you speak Chinese, or you speak, you're from someplace in Southeast Asia, or you're from Africa, or you're from South America, great, then you can be that person. But it can be really helpful to have someone who really understands the local business culture, who can work with you on that. And if you don't have that, it makes it a lot more difficult. So obviously I believe in using a sourcing agent because we hired one, and that's the person that we use for all of this. For our clients, we have clients that we're helping develop products or helping them develop new products to add to their product line. And our team in China helps support them with that. Actually, one of our clients actually just paid our sourcing agent to go to the Canton Fair for him, which is kind of fun. And she went, and he had a whole list of things that he wanted her to go look at. She went, she did all of it, provided a report, contact information, pricing, like the whole thing. So that's pretty useful to have someone on the ground there. Okay, all right, question from Katie. What are your thoughts on Amazon launch services such as Viral Launch? Are they in violation of Amazon TOS if they use super URLs? They're actually just in violation of Amazon TOS, period. If you look at the prohibited seller activities, it clearly says that giveaways for the purpose of manipulating rank are prohibited. It's just in black and white right there. It's prohibited. Now, as far as Amazon doing anything about it right now, they don't. But just know that the whole practice is prohibited. It's not about even super URLs. Manipulating rank is the problem at all, and giveaways manipulate rank. The purpose of ranking for Amazon is to make sure that customers are more likely to get products that they want. And by manipulating rank, you're making it less likely that they get products that they want. you're making it more likely that they see your product more than somebody else's. So for my thoughts on Viral Launch, we don't use it ever. And none of our clients do either, because people work with us because we follow rules. That's why they choose us as opposed to other management agencies. So my thought is don't do it. But you do need a methodology for launch. And so typically our methodology is the 4 to 12 week strategy. It's a little bit slower. That always is a little bit shocking to folks who are like, wait, it's going to take how long? And it's just because that's about how long it takes to do things the right way, to get Amazon's algorithm to learn what you're doing in a kind of stepwise, consistent fashion. But once you do it, it's a lot more consistent going forward. A lot of times the giveaways, they'll give you like a short-term boost, but if you don't do something to stay on page one, you're not going to maintain that rank. And sometimes that means a lot of losses before you can actually start making any money. And for most people, that's just not an option. You can't just have like consistent losses like that. So the way that we typically recommend launches is to get a review or two through your network, not any friends or family. You'll need to find friends of friends or friends of family, someone who's willing to try the product and review it for you. And then once you have at least one review, and you shouldn't need to do more than that if you're doing this the kind of consistent way, then you enroll it in the early reviewer program, turn on advertising, and turn on coupons. With advertising plus coupons plus the early reviewer program, you usually will get your reviews fairly quickly. The more reviews you have, the more likely it is people are going to be willing to buy. It takes anywhere between 4 and 12 weeks to launch a product this way, and it has to be consistently done. The other way that you can do this to where you get reviews fairly quickly is by working with influencers and trying to get in front of their audience and have them be willing to try it out. Give them a 20% off discount. Not giant discounts. Amazon warns you if you go over like 70 or 75%, just don't do those. There's a reason why they warn you. It's because you're not really supposed to be doing it. So I highly recommend not using tools like Viral Launch. I know they always say we're with an Amazon TOS, but it's so obvious. Like the whole point is to manipulate rank. That's why to do it. Why else would you do it otherwise? So that's, okay, they can say what they want, but ultimately you're responsible for your account. You're responsible for what you choose to do in your business. And at least for our business and for our clients' business, we don't do anything that violates policies that way. Yeah, and Lee says the point you made is important. If folks are going to work with programs, they need to make sure they are following Amazon rules. Yeah, just because someone says they're following TOS, and I've been on panels with the Viral Launch guys, and they're nice guys. They're very aggressive about what they want to do, and they're out there, they're hitting it hard. And the fact is these launches work. If you do it a certain way, they can work very effectively. But generally speaking, cheating works, right? That's why people cheat. As far as losing the accounts, typically it's not enforced on right now, unless you're doing something in regards to reviews. It's not heavily enforced. I've only seen someone dinged for manipulation of rank a couple times. And it was really blatant. It was like every single thing they did. And then they did it after launch. So it wasn't just once at the very beginning. They also did it multiple times to try to get back onto page one. And so they got suspended for that. I don't know how Amazon intends to enforce this going forward. They made it really, really explicitly obvious that giveaway approaches were banned. I think they updated that page at the end of 2016 or early 2017. So it was really obvious. And usually when they do that, that means they've got a plan to do some sort of enforcement action in future. So I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, no one really knows what their timeline is except them. But I would suspect that at some point they're going to start enforcing on these because it's really obvious, right? You give 90% off or 99% off discounts through Amazon. They can see it. Like they know exactly who's doing this. Just a question of when or if they choose to enforce. But the policy is very clear. And because it's so easy to check and see if you violated the policy, it's just not a policy that I would ever be willing to break or advise clients to break just because it's so obvious when you do break it. Okay. All right, so that's it for this morning. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. We have only about a week left until Black Friday, so getting so close. If you have any questions, pop into our Facebook group, and I hope to hear from you there. And I'm sure you've seen that for the free Facebook group, I'm in there probably a couple times a week answering questions, but we check on that very regularly and make sure that everything is curated in there. So, all right, thanks everybody, and I will see you next week on Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.